Before we drift into tonight's tale of the philosophy of Adventure Time, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. Tonight we wander into the quiet heart of Ooh, not to chase monsters or to uncover lost treasures, but to gently ask, what does it mean to be a hero in a world as strange and wondrous as Adventure Time? When we think of heroes, our minds often reach back to the great myths, stories of warriors and kings, of knights in shining armor, of chosen ones destined to save the world. But Ooh does not quite follow those old paths. Its heroes, especially Finn the human, feel different, softer perhaps, more human in their mistakes, in their learning, and in the simple ways they try to do good. Finn's journey begins in the most childlike way. He dreams of being a hero because it feels exciting. He rushes headfirst into battles, shouting boldly, swinging his sword, eager to rescue princesses and defeat evil. To a child watching, Finn seems like a classic hero. Yet, as the story unfolds, the idea of heroism begins to shift. It grows more complex, more reflective. Being a hero in Ooh isn't about winning every fight or always being right. It is about showing up even when it hurts. It is about facing the world's strangeness with courage, even when you are scared. Think of the times Finn tries and fails. He makes mistakes often, sometimes hurting the very people he wants to protect. His heartbreak with Flame Princess. His clumsy attempts to be mature, even the way he sometimes lashes out when confused. These are not the polished actions of a flawless champion. Yet somehow they teach us something more valuable. They remind us that being a hero is not about being perfect. It is about continuing, growing, and learning to care more deeply. In one quiet moment, Finn says simply, "I'm just a simple dude." It is a sentence that drifts lightly on the air, but it carries a truth about his role. He is not a chosen one because of divine power or destiny, but because he chooses to act with kindness again and again. His humanity, fragile and ordinary as it seems, becomes the root of his heroism. The land of Ooh constantly asks strange things of him. A candy kingdom teetering on the edge of collapse, lost spirits wandering the night, cosmic beings who see time and space like a plaything. Against such enormous forces, Finn's bravery often seems small, but the philosophy of Adventure Time whispers that this is what makes it meaningful, that small acts carried out with love and persistence matter even more in a vast and uncertain universe. And then there is Jake, Finn's brother, his companion, and his foil. Where Finn pushes forward with youthful intensity, Jake strolls through life with a kind of lazy wisdom. At first glance, Jake seems far from heroic. He loves food, naps, and jokes more than quests. Yet his presence softens Finn, reminding him that being a hero is not only about fighting, but about finding joy and balance along the way. Jake embodies another side of heroism, the kind that keeps a weary traveler from losing hope. His wisdom, scattered in small, funny phrases, often guides Finn more than any sword ever could. Together, Finn and Jake create a picture of heroism that feels gentle and real. Not the blinding shine of a legend, but the warm glow of friendship and persistence. When we watch them, we see that Ooh does not want us to imagine ourselves as unreachable figures of myth, but as people who can be brave in small, everyday ways. There are other heroes, too. Marceline, who fights her own battles with identity, loneliness, and the weight of centuries. Princess Bubblegum, who struggles to protect her people, sometimes at the cost of her own softness. Each carries a different face of heroism, sometimes flawed, sometimes misunderstood, yet always revealing that to be a hero is to care so deeply that you are willing to bear the cost. Even the Ice King, in his fractured way, seeks to play the role of hero. His misguided kidnappings, his lonely attempts at connection, all echo a desperate longing to matter. And in that longing, we glimpse another truth, that heroism is not only what the world sees, but also what one longs for in the quiet of their heart. Adventure Time, with its playful colors and strange stories, could have kept heroism simple. It could have given us only the thrill of battles and victories, but instead it lingers in the quiet spaces. It shows us that true courage often looks like admitting when you are wrong, forgiving a friend, or choosing kindness when it would be easier to turn away. As we drift deeper into this reflection, we see that Oo's heroes are not distant figures shining from the stars. They are close, familiar, and human. They remind us that to be a hero is not to be unbreakable, but to keep moving forward even when you are. When we pause and think about Finn's growth, we notice how his path of heroism is not straight, but winding. At the start, he dreams of fighting evil for the thrill of it. He is young, with a heart full of energy, eager to leap into danger with little thought of what comes after. Yet as he grows older, his sense of heroism deepens. Each scar, each loss, each moment of doubt reshapes him. Adventure Time allows us to watch this growth slowly, like watching a tree gain its rings year by year. One of the most tender examples is the way Finn learns to face failure. There are times he cannot save the day, times when his choices leave others hurt. Instead of breaking him, these failures become lessons. They soften his understanding of the world, teaching him that sometimes a hero does not win but learns. In this way, the philosophy of Oo suggests that true bravery lies not in never falling, but in rising after each stumble. Consider his relationship with Flame Princess. Their love begins with sparks wild, exciting, almost uncontrollable. Finn believes that being a hero means protecting her and making everything perfect. Yet as their relationship burns hot and then fades, he realizes that even love cannot always be saved by heroic gestures. Sometimes to care for someone means to step back, to accept endings, and to let change take its course. This lesson, though painful, matures him more than any battle could. Jake, in his gentle way, often guides Finn through these changes. He does not give long speeches or grand lessons. Instead, his wisdom drifts in like a breeze light, easy to miss, but always there. When Finn pushes too hard, Jake reminds him to relax. When Finn despairs, Jake nudges him toward laughter. Through Jake, we see another face of heroism, the quiet strength of keeping someone grounded, of being the steady presence when storms rage. Sometimes the greatest heroes are not those who slay dragons, but those who help a loved one find their way back to peace. The show also places Finn beside figures who challenge his idea of heroism. Marceline, for example, does not fight for kingdoms or crowns. Her battles are inward, against loneliness, memory, and the shadows of her past. Her songs reveal wounds that cannot be healed by swords, and yet her openness, her willingness to share her pain through music, becomes a form of heroism in itself. She shows us that courage can be as simple as being honest about who we are, even when it hurts. Princess Bubblegum, too, complicates the image of a hero. To her people, she is a protector, a ruler who safeguards the Candy Kingdom with intelligence and strength. But her choices are not always kind. She sometimes sacrifices warmth for control, building her kingdom's safety upon strict rules. In her, we see the heavy weight of responsibility, the truth that being a hero for many may mean being misunderstood by some. Bubblegum's version of heroism is not soft or simple. It is pragmatic, sometimes cold, but always rooted in love for her people. She teaches us that heroism can carry burdens unseen. That sometimes saving others means bearing the costs quietly. And then there is the Ice King. On the surface, he seems the furthest from a hero, bumbling, selfish, forever chasing princesses who do not want him. But beneath his madness lies Simon Petrikov, a man who once sacrificed his own life to save Marceline during the chaos after the Great Mushroom War. His heroism was not dramatic or celebrated. It was quiet, tragic, and forgotten. Yet even in his broken state, fragments of Simon's care still shine through. His story reminds us that heroism is not always recognized, and that sometimes to be a hero is to lose yourself in the act of saving someone else. Adventure Time draws all of these threads together to show us that heroism wears many faces. It can be the eager energy of a boy with a sword, the steady calm of a brother, the music of a lonely vampire, the weighty choices of a ruler, or the forgotten sacrifice of a scholar turned mad. None of these are perfect. All of them are flawed, and yet together they create a mosaic of what it means to keep moving forward with love, even when the world is confusing and strange. In this way, Ooh reshapes the very idea of heroism. It asks us to look not for flawless legends, but for the quiet, human choices that ripple outward, shaping the lives around us. When we think of Finn and his companions, we are reminded that we too can be heroes, not by conquering empires or facing cosmic beings, but by showing kindness, persistence, and care in our everyday lives. The land of Ooh itself is more than just a backdrop for these stories. It breathes, shifts, and challenges its heroes in ways that shape their very identities. Ooh is a world born from destruction, molded by the Great Mushroom War, where magic and ruin blend seamlessly. In such a place, the meaning of heroism cannot remain static. It bends and adapts to the peculiar rhythms of the land. When Finn and Jake set out on their adventures, the land rarely offers them simple quests. A dungeon may lead not to treasure, but to questions of morality. A battle with a monster may end in realizing that the creature was lonely, not evil. Even the strangest corners of Ooh, like the Nightosphere or the realm of dreamscapes, bring with them lessons about empathy and choice. In these spaces, a hero must learn to see beyond appearances, to recognize that what looks frightening may hide a fragile truth. One of the clearest examples is the story of the Lich. Here's a figure that embodies pure destruction, a villain without mercy. To face him is to face the end itself, and yet even in this confrontation, Ooh does not frame heroism as merely slaying evil. When the Lich is reborn as the gentle child Sweet Pea, Finn's role as a hero shifts once more. Instead of defeating an enemy, he must accept the possibility of change, of growth, of new beginnings. To be a hero in Ooh is not only to fight darkness, but to believe that even the darkest things may transform into light. This belief is echoed in the way Ooh's heroes interact with its many kingdoms and their inhabitants. The Candy Kingdom, with its fragile citizens, constantly reminds Finn of how delicate life can be. The Fire Kingdom, unpredictable and fierce, teaches him that power can be both beautiful and dangerous. The Ice Kingdom, shrouded in sorrow, shows him that behind every villain may be a story of love and loss. Each realm presents him with a different vision of what it means to care, to protect, and to act with courage. And in this strange, vibrant land, Finn often discovers that heroism is not always grand. Sometimes it is as small as helping a villager carry a load, listening to a friend's worries, or choosing patience when anger would be easier. Oo is filled with characters who test his compassion, from the smallest candy person to cosmic beings who bend reality. Each encounter nudges him closer to an understanding that heroism is not about the size of the act, but about the heart behind it. The cosmic beings, in particular, stretch Finn's sense of what it means to be a hero. The Prismo, the Cosmic Owl, the Time Room. These entities exist far beyond human scale. They reveal how tiny Finn's struggles appear when measured against the fabric of time and space. And yet, even in their presence, Finn's choices matter. Oo teaches us, through him, that heroism is not diminished by scale. Whether saving a single friend or standing against cosmic fate, the act of caring carries its own weight. This philosophy resonates most deeply when we reflect on Finn's humanity. Unlike so many in Oo, he is not magical by nature. He cannot live forever like Marceline, nor shapeshift like Jake, nor rule a kingdom with intellect like Bubblegum. He is, in essence, ordinary. And that ordinariness is precisely what makes his heroism profound. Oo reminds us that greatness does not require powers or crowns. It requires only the willingness to try again and again, even when the world feels impossibly large. There is a quiet poetry in the way Finn grows older across the series. We watch him pass through childhood into adolescence, and with each stage, his view of heroism matures. The boy who once swung his sword recklessly becomes a young man who listens more, who questions more, who understands that the world is not always divided into good and evil. This journey mirrors our own. As children, we may dream of heroes who conquer everything. As we grow, we learn that true heroism lies in gentleness, resilience, and the courage to keep caring even when life does not give us clear answers. Adventure Time's world of Oo never allows its heroes to stay still. It is always shifting, always surprising, reminding us that to be a hero is to be ready for change. Finn learns that heroism can mean facing a villain with a sword one day and sitting quietly with a grieving friend the next. It can mean standing tall against the lich or kneeling down to comfort a child. Oo does not separate these acts. It teaches us that each one carries equal weight. Perhaps this is why Adventure Time feels so deeply comforting, even in its strangest moments. It whispers that heroism is not some distant shining thing, but something we can all carry within us. We do not need to slay dragons or face cosmic trials to live with courage. We only need to keep showing kindness, even in small ways, even when no one is watching. And so, as Finn and Jake wander across the land of Oo, we see ourselves in their steps. We see the clumsy, hopeful attempts to do good, the mistakes that shape us, the laughter that saves us, and the steady return to love after every fall. This, in the end, is the gentle shape of heroism in Oo, not a tale of perfect champions, but of ordinary souls who keep choosing to care, no matter how strange or difficult the world becomes. If we look closely, we notice how Adventure Time slowly guides us to rethink not only what a hero is, but why the idea of heroism matters at all. Finn's story is not about glory, nor about conquering the land, nor even about being remembered. His victories are often small, fleeting, and forgotten by most of Oo. Yet to the people he helps, to the friends he protects, to the strangers he comforts, to the broken souls he listens to, his actions carry weight. Heroism here is less about the story written in history and more about the quiet imprint left on individual hearts. There is something almost bedtime-like in this philosophy. Just as we drift into dreams carrying fragments of our day, so too do the people of Oo carry fragments of Finn's kindness. The candy people who sleep soundly because their kingdom is safe. Marceline, who remembers the friend who listened when she felt alone. Even Jake, who knows his brother will always be there, no matter how the years change them. These are the subtle echoes of heroism that ripple outward, soft and enduring. We also begin to see how the show deliberately resists final answers. In many tales, the hero's path is a straight road leading to triumph, to resolution, to closure. But in Adventure Time, the path curves, doubles back, and wanders like a dream. There are no permanent victories. Enemies return, kingdoms crumble, friendships evolve. Heroism here is not about reaching an end, but about walking the path itself. It is a lifelong rhythm, like breathing inhale with courage, exhale with compassion, again and again. Even the way Finn interacts with cosmic beings reflects this philosophy. When he meets Prismo, the Wishmaster living in his time room, Finn is offered chances to shape reality itself. Many heroes might seize such power, rewriting the world in their image. But Finn's wishes are often clumsy, born of longing rather than wisdom, and they do not unfold as he hopes. These moments reveal that heroism is not about control over destiny, but about accepting the limits of what we can change and choosing love within those limits. The cosmic owl, with his cryptic appearances in dreams, reminds us that even heroes cannot escape fate. Prophecies linger like shadows, hinting at inevitable endings. And yet Finn's response is rarely despair. Instead, he learns to face fate with courage, to meet what comes with open hands. In this acceptance lies another face of heroism, the willingness to live fully, even knowing that every story must one day end. What makes Adventure Time so comforting is that it does not set its heroes apart from us. It does not raise them onto unreachable pedestals. Finn, Jake, Marceline, Bubblegum, and even the tragic Simon are all flawed, vulnerable, often uncertain. But that is what makes their choices so meaningful. When they keep moving forward despite their flaws, we feel a quiet invitation to do the same. It is also worth noticing how laughter and playfulness run through all of this. Heroism in Ooh is never grim. Even in moments of sadness, the show finds space for joy, a silly song, a joke between brothers, a candy citizen stumbling about in cheerful confusion. This balance teaches us that courage is not only about enduring pain, but also about holding on to joy, about remembering to laugh even when the world feels heavy. Joy itself becomes an act of heroism, a refusal to let sorrow consume everything. And so the gentle shape of heroism in Ooh is revealed piece by piece, in Finn's growing maturity, in Jake's steady presence, in Marceline's vulnerable songs, in Bubblegum's careful choices, in Simon's hidden sacrifice. It is revealed in the land itself, which tests its heroes not with simple battles, but with lessons of empathy, patience, and change. It is revealed in the small victories that ripple quietly, in the willingness to rise after failure, and in the laughter that carries them through the night. Perhaps the truest lesson is this: heroism is not a distant destiny, but a daily practice. It is not the shining armor of legend, but the soft persistence of kindness. Adventure Time shows us that each of us, in our own small way, carries the potential to be a hero not by saving the world, but by caring for it piece by piece, moment by moment. As the stars drift quietly above the land of Ooh, we are left with a gentle understanding. A hero is not someone untouched by flaws, but someone who chooses to keep caring despite them. A hero is not someone who conquers all, but someone who learns, who forgives, who loves. And in the soft light of this philosophy, we see that we too are part of that story. This is the calm truth whispered by Adventure Time. that heroism can be as grand as facing cosmic darkness, or as simple as holding a friend's hand. Both are equal in the eyes of Oo. Both shine with the same gentle glow. And with this reflection, we close our first step into the philosophy of Adventure Time, a meditation on what it means to be a hero and why even the smallest acts of courage ripple outward into something beautiful. We've wandered through the gentle shape of heroism in Oo, and now we find ourselves at a deeper, quieter layer of the show's strange heart. Because beneath the bright colors, the goofy songs, and the endless supply of candy puns, Adventure Time is quietly whispering about something we all carry with us, something we don't often want to look at but can't escape: mortality. Yes, that word might feel heavy, but the way Adventure Time treats it is never grim for the sake of it. Instead, it handles the reality of life's impermanence with an honesty that feels almost childlike, yet somehow wiser than many stories written for adults. You'll notice it doesn't shy away from death, but it also doesn't allow it to rule everything with fear. Death in Oo is strange, sometimes silly, sometimes heartbreaking, and often deeply comforting. One of the most direct expressions of this comes in the form of a character who is literally named Death. A skeletal figure, aloof and a little sarcastic, he doesn't come across as a monster to be defeated, but more like a cosmic official doing his job. He has rules, he has boundaries, and he doesn't seem particularly cruel. In fact, in the episode where Finn and Jake encounter him, there's almost a casual quality to the way he runs his realm. Death isn't a villain here. He's part of the natural order. And isn't that, in a way, more comforting than the endless parade of stories where death is framed as an evil to be conquered? And then there's the way Oo itself feels like a place forever hovering between life and decay. Think of the ruined structures scattered across the land, the remnants of our own world after the Mushroom War. Grass grows over broken skyscrapers, strange creatures crawl through the bones of fallen civilizations, and yet life continues. The Candy People celebrate. Finn and Jake adventure. The Ice King writes his silly songs. It's a reminder that everything we build, even the strongest empires, will one day fade. But just as important, new life will bloom from those ruins. Mortality doesn't just mean endings, it means cycles. The show also handles personal loss with moments so tender you can feel them echo in your chest. Think of tree trunks, the little green elephant with a heart of gold. She's fragile, old, and in her own quirky way, she knows her time could be limited. But she doesn't live in fear of that. Instead, she throws herself into love, into apple pies, into adventure. Her very existence reminds us that acknowledging mortality doesn't have to mean retreating into sadness. It can mean leaning more joyfully into the moments we do have. And then, of course, there's Simon Petrikov, the Ice King. Few stories in Adventure Time hit harder than his. His slow decline, caused by the cursed crown, is a kind of living death. He's trapped in a body and mind that isn't his own, the person he loved most, Betty, watching him slip away. It's devastating. Yet the show doesn't make him simply tragic. There's humor in his loneliness, sweetness in his desire for friends, and flickers of the man he once was. Through Simon, Adventure Time shows us what it means to grieve not only the dead, but also the living who have changed in ways that make them feel gone. Mortality isn't just about death. It's about the transformations that life forces on us, sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully. What's remarkable is how these themes slip into the story without ever feeling like lectures. They're wrapped in jokes, in songs, in bizarre quests involving giant monsters or cursed objects. You'll be laughing at Lumpy Space Princess one moment, then suddenly feel that pang of recognition when the episode gently suggests that nothing lasts forever. And because it's never heavy-handed, the truth sneaks into your heart quietly, like a lullaby with words you only realize are profound long after it's been sung. In this way, Adventure Time manages to show children and adults that death isn't the enemy of life. It's the thing that gives life its urgency, its sweetness. It's why we hold our friends a little closer, why we savor a pie baked by tree trunks, why we cheer when Finn takes up his sword again and again, despite knowing every adventure must eventually end. When you look closer, some of the most haunting reflections on mortality in Adventure Time don't happen in grand confrontations with death or in tragic arcs like Simon's. They happen in the quieter corners of the story, the moments where the show lingers on something ending or already gone. Take the episode I Remember You. On the surface, it's just Ice King and Marceline trying to write a silly song together. But as the layers peel back, we see something devastating. The letters from Simon to Marceline, written long ago when he was still himself, reveal a man who knew he was losing himself. He begged Marceline to forgive him for what he would become. This isn't death in the physical sense. This is the death of memory, of identity, of self. And what makes it so heartbreaking is that Marceline still remembers. She carries the weight of that loss while the person she loved doesn't even realize what's been taken from him. Mortality here is not just about dying. It's about the ways we slowly lose pieces of one another, and the ache of remembering for two. Then there's the way endings slip into the smallest, strangest places. Think of the grass sword, a weapon that fuses itself to Finn. At first, it's just another cool tool for adventuring. But over time, it becomes a reminder of how every gift, every power, carries a cost. Eventually, the grass sword overtakes Finn's arm, and though he adapts, it also symbolizes the way time always leaves its mark. Sometimes it's scars, sometimes it's growth. In Ooh, even something as playful as a magical sword becomes a meditation on the permanence of change, the little deaths we undergo as we move from one stage of life to another. Mortality is also painted in the landscapes themselves. The show often takes us through forests where the trees are cracked and hollow, deserts where ruins poke through the sand, oceans where shipwrecks rest untouched. These aren't just background details. They're constant reminders that the world is old, that civilizations have risen and fallen, and that Ooh exists in the shadow of what once was. The Mushroom War left behind echoes. And though the characters laugh and play, the ruins whisper of mortality on a scale larger than any one life. Watching it, we're reminded that history outlives us, that every generation is both a continuation and a replacement. And yet for every ruin, there's rebirth. Candy sprouts where factories once stood. Magical creatures flourish in forgotten valleys. Even Finn, a human born in a world where humanity has almost disappeared, becomes proof that life will find a way to continue. Mortality is never just the end. It's also the soil from which something new emerges. One of the most striking explorations of this theme comes with the character of Peppermint Butler. At first, he's a comic sidekick, a cute little peppermint candy who seems innocent enough. But as the series unfolds, we discover his dark, magical side. He's friends with death himself. He traffics in secrets about life and the afterlife. And through him, the show suggests something profound. That even in a candy kingdom, filled with joy and silliness, there are always shadows underneath. Even the sweetest places cannot escape the truth that everything ends. But instead of fearing it, Peppermint Butler embraces it. He makes peace with it. And in his own twisted way, he thrives because of it. This duality, Light and shadow, sweetness and mortality is everywhere in Ooh. It's in Princess Bubblegum, a ruler made of candy who is technically immortal but constantly grappling with the fragility of her people. It's in Jake, whose laid-back attitude hides the knowledge that his time is limited, and who later in the series faces his own mortality more directly. It's in Marceline, an immortal vampire who can never die, yet spends much of her story grieving the mortals she's loved and lost. Mortality in Adventure Time is never a single story. It's 1,000 little stories woven together. It's the way a silly quest for a sandwich turns into a meditation on how friendships change. It's the way a battle against a cosmic villain ends with quiet acceptance instead of rage. It's the way characters you thought would last forever fade into memory, while others step forward to take their place. And perhaps most beautifully, mortality in Ooh doesn't erase joy. Instead, it heightens it. The laughter feels louder when you know it can't last forever. The sunsets look more golden when you realize they are finite. And every adventure Finn and Jake share feels precious, precisely because we know their time together will one day run out. As the story unfolds, mortality begins to shape the choices of individual characters in ways that are both subtle and profound. For Finn, the awareness of mortality is always just out of reach during his younger years. He races through Ooh with boundless energy, ready to fight monsters, rescue princesses, and leap headlong into any adventure. But even Finn, the eternal optimist, encounters moments that force him to stop and reflect. His brushes with mortality are often tied to the people he loves, whether it's watching Marceline mourn or holding the weight of Simon's tragedy. Finn begins to see that being a hero isn't about escaping death. It's about walking alongside it and choosing kindness even when endings are inevitable. Jake, on the other hand, represents a very different relationship with mortality. From the start, he lives with a remarkable ease, as though time itself can't bother him. He naps in the middle of battles, cracks jokes in tense situations, and always seems to find joy in the present moment. Yet beneath that calm exterior, Jake knows the truth. His body ages, his powers won't last forever, and he too is subject to time. The most touching exploration of this comes later in the series, when Jake begins to truly grapple with the idea of his own death. His dreams take him to strange, spiritual places where he communes with beings that seem to exist between life and the afterlife. Jake doesn't resist these visions. Instead, he accepts them. His wisdom lies not in denial, but in comfort with the natural cycle. In many ways, Jake teaches us that mortality doesn't have to be feared. It can be met with laughter, with naps in the sun, and with the quiet knowledge that everything flows onward. Princess Bubblegum's perspective offers yet another angle. While she is technically ageless, built from candy matter and capable of reshaping herself, her entire kingdom is made of fragile candy people. She knows intimately that her creations, her subjects, are vulnerable. She spends countless nights building machines, devising defenses, and trying to outwit time itself. But the truth remains. Even with all her intelligence, she cannot stop loss from happening. Episodes like Goliad show the cost of this fear, as Bubblegum attempts to create a successor who can rule forever, only for that creation to spiral into something unstable and dangerous. In her story, mortality isn't just personal, it's political. It's the reminder that no matter how powerful or clever we become, we cannot secure permanence. Her arc reveals that leadership itself is an act of caring for what will eventually be lost. Marceline's journey may be the most poignant of all. As a vampire queen, she lives far beyond the span of ordinary mortals. At first glance, this seems like a gift, an escape from death. But for Marceline, immortality is its own kind of grief. She outlives her friends, her family, and even the civilization she once walked through. What haunts her isn't her own mortality, but the endless cycle of saying goodbye. In her music, she pours this sorrow, her songs becoming elegies for those who have passed. The show never frames her as pitiful, though. Instead, Marceline is a reminder that living forever does not free us from the weight of mortality. It only changes the shape of the loss. Through her, we see how memory itself can be a form of mourning, but also a form of love. Even minor characters reflect this theme. Tree Trunks, with her cheerful apple pie demeanor, seems almost untouched by the gravity of death. Yet her relationships with creatures like the crystal alien husband or her ventures into dangerous lands constantly brush against mortality. Her courage comes from a refusal to let the fear of death keep her from living fully. In another way, Death himself, an actual character within Ooh, embodies mortality with a strange casualness. He's not a frightening figure, but rather a bureaucratic one, almost bored by the endless passing of souls. By making death so ordinary, the show disarms us. Mortality is not a monster lurking in the shadows. It's a constant, inevitable, and sometimes even mundane reality. And then there's the question of legacy. What remains after someone is gone? Characters like Billy, the great hero before Finn, cast long shadows. Finn idolizes him, measures himself against him, and even inherits lessons from his memory. Billy's death is not the end of his influence. Instead, it becomes a spark that propels Finn further on his own path. In this way, Adventure Time shows that mortality doesn't erase meaning. If anything, it creates it. Each hero leaves behind something for the next to carry. Each story becomes part of a chain that stretches across time. The brilliance of Adventure Time lies in how it weaves all these perspectives together. Mortality isn't shown as one single truth, but as a mosaic of experiences. For Finn, it's a lesson in growth. For Jake, it's a reason to relax into the flow. For Bubblegum, it's a puzzle she cannot solve. For Marceline, it's a wound and a song. For Ooh itself, it's the quiet presence in every ruin, every ghost, every rebirth. And as we follow their stories, we begin to sense that mortality isn't something to conquer, but something to live alongside, something that gives texture and depth to the sweetness of every fleeting moment. As we move deeper into the layers of Ooh, mortality reveals itself not only in the lives of individuals, but in the grand cosmic patterns that guide the entire world. The show whispers that death is not only about people passing away, but about the inevitable collapse and renewal of everything, from kingdoms to universes to existence itself. The most haunting embodiment of this is Gulb, unlike death, who tends to souls with weary familiarity. Gulb represents annihilation in its purest form. Gulb does not bargain, does not sympathize, does not make the passage gentle. Instead, Gulb devours, corrupts, and unravels. And yet the presence of such a figure is strangely grounding. Gulb reminds us that there are forces in the universe beyond comprehension, forces that make even the mightiest character small. If the Candy Kingdom, the Ice King's palace, or even the tree fort itself can one day be consumed, then nothing is truly permanent. It sounds frightening, but within the quiet tone of Adventure Time, it becomes a kind of acceptance. The lesson is not that we should fight endlessly against oblivion, but that meaning is found in the fragile span of time before it arrives. The cosmic scale also reflects mortality through cycles of destruction and rebirth. The Mushroom War, long before the events we see on screen, nearly ended the human race. Its ruins scatter across the land like bones of an old world. Yet from this devastation grew Ooh, a land of magic, candy, and strange new life. Destruction, in the world of Adventure Time, always plants the seed of renewal. Every ruin crumbles into soil where something unexpected might bloom. This is mortality on the scale of civilizations. And just like the characters, entire societies must face their own ends so that something new can emerge. Even in the far reaches of space, mortality finds its place. The cosmic owl, who visits dreams, carries omens that often signal endings. His presence is both unsettling and comforting, a reminder that death is stitched into the destiny of all things. Prismo, the wishmaster who exists in a delicate, timeless realm, is another reflection of this. Though Prismo seems eternal, his essence depends on the existence of the body of an ordinary mortal who dreams him into being. When that body dies, so does Prismo, at least until the cycle resets. Here, mortality is shown as unavoidable, even for cosmic entities. They, too, are bound by endings, even if those endings take a different form. And so we come to the heart of it. Mortality in Adventure Time is never painted as an enemy. It is simply part of the world's rhythm. In the same way a song must eventually end for its beauty to be felt, life gains meaning because it does not last forever. Finn and Jake's adventures shimmer all the brighter because one day they will stop. The Candy Kingdom's sweetness feels richer because we know it is fragile. Even the laughter of small, silly characters like the Banana Guards or the lumpy space people carries weight, because joy that lasts forever loses its sharpness. It is joy that can end, which feels truly alive. And when the series itself reaches its end, mortality is once more the final lesson. The closing moments remind us that even though Finn and Jake's story concludes, the world goes on. Ooh continues to change. New characters take the stage. The camera pans away, leaving us with the sense that life is an endless chain of beginnings and endings. Mortality is not a void to fear, it is a passageway to transformation. As you drift deeper into thought, consider how softly Adventure Time places this truth in our hands. Every friendship, every battle, every quiet walk under Ooh's starry skies carries the reminder that nothing is forever. And yet, far from being bleak, this truth is tender. It invites us to cherish the now, to laugh with friends while we can, to hold love close, knowing it is precious because it is fleeting. Mortality, the great equalizer, becomes in this story not a curse, but a quiet gift. And so, beneath the candy-coated surface, behind the laughter and the songs, Adventure Time teaches us to make peace with the most universal of truths, to see every ending as part of a greater rhythm, to embrace mortality not with fear, but with wonder. And perhaps, as we close our eyes tonight, we can carry that gentle wisdom into our dreams, that life is beautiful precisely because it does not last forever. Love in Adventure Time is rarely simple, and it is never static. It drifts, it shifts, it fades, and then reappears in forms we don't expect. And within that constant motion, we discover one of the show's most profound philosophies. Love is not meant to be fixed or perfect. It is alive, restless, and always changing, just like the land of Ooh itself. When we think about love in the series, many of us might first picture Finn's early infatuation with Princess Bubblegum. His love for her is wide-eyed and pure, a kind of admiration a young adventurer might hold for someone older, wiser, and endlessly impressive. But as time goes on, we see how that love shifts. Finn cannot stay in the simplicity of childhood forever. His feelings evolve, often painfully, as Bubblegum reveals her complexity. Not a fairy tale princess waiting for rescue, but a ruler burdened with responsibility, with flaws and with secrets. The dynamic between them shows us that love can begin as something innocent and one-sided, but it cannot stay frozen there. It must grow, or it must change into something else. Bubblegum herself embodies love's restlessness. She loves her people, the citizens of the Candy Kingdom, with a devotion that borders on obsession. Yet that love sometimes takes shapes that are controlling, even possessive. She engineers solutions to protect them, manipulates outcomes to ensure their safety, and in doing so, shows us how love can twist into something more complicated. It can protect, but it can also smother. The series never condemns her for this, but it allows us to see the dangers of love that cannot let go. Then there is Marceline, whose love lives in memory and in music. Her bond with Bubblegum, slowly revealed across the series, shows another kind of restlessness, the kind that comes with unresolved feelings. They drift apart. They come back together, and in between, they carry pieces of each other that never quite fade. Their story reminds us that love doesn't disappear when people separate. It lingers in song and small gestures, in the way you think of someone when a certain color or sound passes by. It is a force that can remain quiet for centuries, only to stir again when the moment is right. Finn's journey with love continues as he grows older. His heart wanders, sometimes toward Flame Princess, whose fiery spirit ignites both passion and destruction. Their relationship burns brightly, full of joy and intensity, but it cannot last. Like fire itself, it consumes, and eventually they part. And yet even here, the show treats the ending not as failure, but as another stage in love's restless movement. Love, it seems to say, is not always meant to be permanent. Sometimes it is meant to teach, to transform, and then to move on. What makes all these stories resonate is the gentleness with which Adventure Time treats them. Love is not a neat reward or a final answer. It is messy, confusing, sometimes painful, sometimes sweet beyond words. It stretches across friendships, romances, and even family ties. Jake's love for Finn, for instance, is perhaps the most stable thread in the series, and even that shifts as they both grow older. Jake is both a brother and a parent to Finn, guiding him when he needs it, teasing him when the moment calls for it, and always reminding him that love can be playful. Their bond is proof that love is not limited to romance. It's found in every form of connection that shapes who we are. Love also flows through unexpected corners of ooh. Think of tree trunks, whose seemingly endless string of marriages might appear comical at first. Yet her story quietly shows that love can take many shapes, and that a restless heart is not necessarily a broken one. Each relationship is a chapter, a moment of happiness, a reflection of her willingness to keep seeking connection despite past disappointments. Even characters who seem antagonistic carry love in their stories. The Ice King, often seen as lonely and delusional, builds entire fantasies around princesses who never wanted him. It's tragic, yes, but also deeply human. His yearning is distorted by the crown's magic, yet beneath it lies a man who once loved deeply, who once cared for a little girl in a ruined world, and who never stopped aching for that connection. His story is perhaps the clearest example of how love can be both salvation and sorrow, something that keeps us going, even as it breaks us. Through all these threads, the series reminds us that love does not sit still. It transforms with time, it grows through joy, it deepens through pain. Love in Ooh is never a fairy tale ending written in stone. It is a restless river, carrying characters from one stage of life to the next. Marceline and Bubblegum's relationship is one of the most tender examples of how Adventure Time approaches love as something that grows and shifts with time. When we first see them together, the edges of their bond are rough. They tease, they bicker, and there is an undercurrent of unspoken history. At first, it may look like simple rivalry or even casual annoyance, but as the series unfolds, we begin to sense that what lies beneath their exchanges is something far deeper, something scarred by time yet unwilling to fade. Marceline's love, expressed through music, becomes a window into her vulnerability. Songs like I'm Just Your Problem reveal the ache of feeling unacknowledged, the pain of caring for someone who pushes you away. The rawness of her lyrics cuts through the playful surface of the show, reminding us that love can wound just as much as it can heal. Bubblegum, with her stoic nature and relentless focus on duty, finds it hard to reciprocate in the same open, emotional way. Her love is quieter, restrained, and tangled with the weight of her responsibilities as a ruler. And yet, in small gestures, a lingering glance, a soft word, the way she shows up when Marceline truly needs her, we see that her feelings are no less strong. What makes their bond so moving is the way it evolves across the series. Time and distance create rifts, but those rifts do not erase the love between them. When they are reunited after long separations, the connection is still there, waiting. Love here is restless not because it disappears, but because it changes form, sometimes becoming friendship, sometimes silence, and eventually blossoming back into something openly romantic. It shows us that love can survive through imperfections, through mistakes, through years of unresolved tension. The culmination of their journey, when Marceline and Bubblegum finally acknowledge their love for one another, feels less like a sudden revelation and more like the gentle settling of something that has always been there. It is as if the restless force of their relationship has finally found a place to rest, even if only for a time. This resolution tells us that love does not have to be fast or immediate to be true. It can be patient, enduring, and quietly waiting until both hearts are ready. This restless quality of love also echoes through Finn's growth. In his younger years, love is a dizzying rush. His feelings for Bubblegum consume him, filling him with both joy and despair. Later, his relationship with Flame Princess burns brightly, a whirlwind of passion that teaches him that intensity does not always mean permanence. And still later, Finn learns to carry love in quieter ways, through companionship, through trust, through the small comforts of friendship. His journey shows how love transforms as we age, shifting from infatuation to deeper forms of care. It is never wasted, even when it ends, because each stage shapes who he becomes. Jake's relationships highlight another dimension. His love for Lady Rainicorn flows with effortless ease. They laugh together, raise a family, and share adventures, all while embracing the strangeness of their union. There is no drama in their love, no restless tension pulling them apart. But that doesn't mean their bond is static. It deepens with the birth of their children, shifts with the challenges of raising them, and finds balance in the acceptance of each other's differences. Their love is a reminder that restlessness does not always mean turmoil. It can also mean steady growth, the quiet way love adapts to the changes life brings. And yet, even in this calmness, Jake's love carries its own restlessness in the form of impermanence. He knows on some level that his time with Lady Rainicorn and their children is limited. His acceptance of mortality folds into his love, giving every moment of connection greater weight. His laid-back attitude masks the quiet truth that he cherishes what he has precisely because it cannot last forever. Through these stories, Adventure Time shows us that love is not a single path. It is many paths, twisting and turning, sometimes converging, sometimes diverging, but always moving forward. Each character holds a different truth about love, yet all point to the same conclusion. Love is restless because life is restless, and that restlessness is what makes it so alive. And perhaps the most fascinating part of Adventure Time's exploration of love is how it never settles on a single definition. It isn't always grand or sweeping, nor is it always tragic or doomed. Sometimes love is small, like BMO singing to themselves, treating their own existence as worthy of affection. Sometimes it's wild, like Flame Princess's chaotic bursts of energy that mirror her burning emotions. And sometimes love is quiet, like Marceline sitting on the porch with the Princess Bubblegum, not saying anything at all, yet communicating everything. The show teaches us that love wears many faces, and none of them are less real for being fleeting, messy, or incomplete. Take Finn again, who in many ways becomes a mirror for viewers growing up alongside him. His first crush on Princess Bubblegum is the wide-eyed storybook kind of love. She's older, wiser, and often out of reach, but for Finn, her very existence inspires him to be braver. That kind of love burns bright and fierce, but it cannot last. As Finn grows, so does his heart, and he learns that love isn't about winning someone over, but about letting them be who they are. When Bubblegum chooses her duties over romance, Finn has to accept the hard truth that sometimes the timing of love just isn't right. It's not a failure, it's just life. Then comes Flame Princess, and with her, a love that's passionate and volatile. Their relationship is fiery, literally and emotionally, full of highs and lows. It feels raw, almost reckless, but it's also formative. Through her, Finn learns that love can challenge you, push you, and sometimes even hurt you. Yet the pain isn't meaningless. It shapes you, helping you see yourself and others more clearly. When the romance burns out, Finn is left scorched but wiser, his heart carrying both the scars and the lessons. And then there's Jake, who models another version of love altogether. Unlike Finn's youthful adventures, Jake's love with Lady Rainicorn is steady, playful, and enduring. They share quirks, languages, even species differences, but their bond never wavers. Jake reminds us that love doesn't always need to be dramatic or riddled with obstacles. Sometimes it's just about being with someone who makes you laugh, who accepts your weirdness, and who will stick by your side through both naps and battles. But perhaps the most poignant love story in the entire series belongs to Princess Bubblegum and Marceline. Their bond stretches across centuries, tangled in old misunderstandings, regrets, and unspoken feelings. At times they drift apart, and at times they clash. But underneath it all is an affection so deep and enduring that it survives everything. The passing of time, the weight of responsibility, and the wounds of the past. By the finale, when they finally share that quiet, world-stopping kiss, it feels less like the spark of something new and more like the recognition of something that had always been there. Their love isn't about perfection or fairy tale neatness. It's about growth, forgiveness, and finding each other again after being lost. Adventure Time frames love as restless not because it lacks stability, but because it is alive. It shifts, transforms, and adapts, just like the characters themselves. Love is a teacher in the land of Ooh, whispering lessons about letting go, about holding on, about balancing the joy it brings with the grief it inevitably carries. It isn't always easy, but it is always worthwhile. And through all of this, the show quietly reminds us that love is not just for others. It's also about the way we treat ourselves. Finn, BMO, Marceline, Bubblegum, even the Ice King in his twisted, tragic way. All of them wrestle with self-acceptance. To love others, Adventure Time suggests, you must also learn to love the messy, imperfect soul inside yourself. And that is perhaps the most restless journey of all, because self-love is never a one-time achievement. It's something you grow, lose, and rediscover again and again, just like the tides that rise and fall around the shores of Ooh. If you look closely, you'll see that Adventure Time doesn't just portray love as romance. It paints it in every corner of existence in Ooh. Love is in the way Finn and Jake stand by each other no matter what. Their brotherhood unshaken by battles, disagreements, or the strangeness of their world. It's in how Jake supports Finn during heartbreak, not with flowery words, but with food, jokes, and quiet presence. Their love is steady, foundational, the kind that doesn't need grand declarations because it's lived out every day in actions both big and small. Love is also woven into the land itself. Think of the bond between Marceline and her bass guitar, which isn't just an instrument, but a piece of her identity passed down from her father and tied to her memories. Or the Ice King's strange, heartbreaking love for the crown that stole his sanity. It's twisted, yes, but it's also a story about sacrifice. He once wore that crown out of desperation to protect those he loved, and the cost was himself. Adventure Time never shies away from showing how love can be destructive when bound to obsession or loss. Yet even then, it's treated with compassion. One of the most profound aspects of the show is how love and change are inseparable. Relationships end, people grow apart, new bonds form. Finn's romantic arc is a testament to this. He begins the series with wide-eyed innocence, falls into the storms of passion, learns heartbreak, and finally arrives at a place of peace, where love is less about possession and more about understanding. That arc mirrors the journey we all take as we grow up, moving through the seasons of love and learning that change doesn't mean the past wasn't real. It just means life is moving forward. And yet, despite its restlessness, love in Ooh is never meaningless. Every connection leaves a mark, shaping who the characters become. The Bubblegum Marceline reunion shows us that time apart doesn't erase affection. It transforms it. Jake's steady devotion to Lady Rainicorn shows us that commitment can be joyful and silly, not heavy or burdensome. Even the Ice King, broken as he is, reveals that love endures within him, buried beneath layers of madness. His story is a tragic reminder that when love is severed, the soul aches endlessly for what it lost. But love in Adventure Time is not only about characters, it's also about the viewers. The series hands us its stories like little lanterns illuminating the corners of our own lives. Who hasn't felt the pang of Finn's first heartbreak? Who hasn't yearned for connection like Marceline, or laughed with friends like Jake, or struggled to love themselves like BMO? The show whispers that all these experiences are valid, that love is not a single path, but a winding road full of detours, crossroads, and returns. Even the playful, absurd moments carry truths about love. A penguin waddling loyally after the Ice King, a sentient video game console singing a lullaby, two princesses sharing tea after centuries of conflict. All these moments remind us that love thrives in the ordinary as much as in the extraordinary. It can be loud, like the roar of a dragon, or soft, like the rustle of leaves on a quiet night. It can hurt, it can heal, it can vanish, and it can return. It shifts restlessly because it is alive as the people who feel it. By the end of Adventure Time, we come to understand that love is not a fixed destination, but an endless current. Sometimes it pulls you forward, sometimes it tosses you around, and sometimes it carries you back to where you began. But wherever it takes you, it leaves you changed. That is its restless magic. And so, in the land of Ooh, love is not merely an emotion, but a philosophy. A way of existing that honors both its joys and its sorrows. It teaches that love is not meant to be conquered or contained. It is meant to be lived in all its shifting, restless glory. And maybe as we lie here tonight, drifting toward dreams, we can carry that lesson with us. That to love is to accept change, to welcome imperfection, and to keep our hearts open, even when it's hard. Because in the end, love is the force that gives shape to every story, every friendship, every quiet moment we share. Just as it does in Adventure Time, so too does it ripple through our own lives, restless but beautiful, always waiting to be felt. Change is one of the most certain truths in life, and in the land of Ooh, the truth is written into every corner of the story. From the rise and fall of kingdoms to the gentle aging of beloved characters, Adventure Time embraces transformation with a quiet kind of honesty. It never pretends that things will stay the same forever. Instead, it shows us again and again that change is not the enemy of happiness, but the very condition that makes growth possible. When we look back at Finn in the earliest seasons, we see a boy who runs headlong into battle, eager to swing his sword and rescue whoever cries out for help. His voice is higher, his body smaller, his dreams grand and simple. Yet as the series continues, his body grows taller, his voice deepens, and his heart becomes more complex. We watch him fall in and out of love, grapple with questions of identity, and even lose his iconic arm. Finn is not a static hero frozen in time. He is allowed to grow, to stumble, and to become someone different than he was before. This is one of the quiet beauties of Adventure Time. It allows us to witness change unfolding naturally, like watching the seasons turn. But it is not only individuals who change in Ooh. The land itself seems to be in a constant cycle of creation and destruction. Kingdoms rise in glory and fall into ruin. The Candy Kingdom, though it often seems stable, is repeatedly threatened, sometimes crumbling under the weight of its own fragility. The Fire Kingdom burns hot with passion and conflict, only to cool into uneasy peace when rulers shift. Even the Ice Kingdom, a frozen expanse ruled by the tragic figure of Simon, is not permanent. It is shaped by both his madness and his memories, melting and reforming in reflection of his state of mind. The geography of Ooh is a mirror of impermanence. Perhaps the most striking reminder of change is hidden in the history that underpins the entire show, the Great Mushroom War. Long before Finn and Jake wandered the forest or fought candy monsters, a cataclysmic war reshaped the earth, leaving behind ruins and strange magic. What was once a familiar world became the surreal landscape we now call Ooh. This background detail hums like a faint echo throughout the series, reminding us that even civilizations that seem permanent are only one chapter in an endless story. Nothing is guaranteed to last, not even entire worlds. And yet, Adventure Time treats this reality with gentleness. Change is never framed as something purely tragic. Instead, it is often bittersweet. When characters face loss, they also discover renewal. When something ends, another thing quietly begins. Think of Finn's sword shattered beyond repair, only for him to craft or discover another. Or Marceline and Princess Bubblegum, whose relationship falters and shifts over time, only to find new life and tenderness in the end. These are not stories of permanent endings, but of cycles, of things transforming, breaking, and becoming whole again in new ways. Even reincarnation weaves itself into the show's philosophy of change. Finn himself is the latest in a long line of heroic souls, stretching back through countless lifetimes. His bond with Jake may even be older than their current lives, echoing through the ages in different forms. This cycle of rebirth suggests that change is not only natural, but eternal. That who we are now is one expression in an unending flow of time. Adventure Time reminds us that even when this life closes, the story doesn't end. It continues in new shapes, new bodies, new adventures. Change is also reflected in smaller, quieter details. BMO, though seemingly timeless, has moments of growth as they wrestle with questions of identity. Jake, once carefree, gradually feels the weight of fatherhood and the responsibility of raising his pups. Even the villains of Ooh change, often in surprising ways. The Lich, once pure destruction, is transformed into the innocent being known as Sweet Pea, embodying the possibility that even the darkest force can be reshaped. As we drift through these stories, it becomes clear that Adventure Time doesn't fear change. It welcomes it like an old friend. It tells us that nothing is frozen forever, and that this truth is not a curse, but a gift. To live is to move, to grow, to let go, and to embrace what comes next. In Ooh, time is always flowing, carrying characters forward, carrying kingdoms into dust, carrying us into the next chapter of the tale. One of the most graceful examples of change in Adventure Time lies in Princess Bubblegum herself. At first, she appears as a ruler of sweetness and candy, cheerful and light-hearted. Yet as the series deepens, so too does her character. We see her wrestle with the heavy responsibilities of leadership, often caught between compassion and cold pragmatism. She ages backward and forward, at times a 13-year-old, at times an ancient figure with centuries of memories. Her appearance shifts, her outlook changes, and even her kingdom reflects these alterations. Through her, we are reminded that identity is not fixed. It bends with circumstance, responsibility, and time. Marceline, too, is a character who embodies the restless flow of time. As a 1,000-year-old vampire, she has witnessed eras rise and fall. She has lived through the aftermath of the Mushroom War, wandered through lifetimes of loneliness, and formed bonds that slipped away with age. Yet despite the weight of centuries, she remains tender, vulnerable, and playful. Marceline teaches us that change does not strip us of who we are. It layers us with stories, leaving us textured like an old tree whose rings hold the memory of every season. And then there is Jake, who reminds us of a different rhythm of change. Unlike Marceline or Bubblegum, Jake seems relaxed in the face of shifting tides. His stretchy body reflects his spirit, always ready to bend and adapt. Where others may resist the inevitability of transformation, Jake flows with it, accepting new roles with surprising ease. He goes from adventurer to father without clinging to his youth, from carefree companion to wise guide without bitterness. His lesson is simple. Change is easier when you loosen your grip, when you stretch with the current rather than break against it. In Ooh, even the smallest creatures reflect this truth. We see candy citizens rebuilt after crumbling, snails that appear again and again in different places, and magical beings who morph into new shapes without hesitation. Change is not an anomaly in this world. It is the air they breathe. Yet because the tone of Adventure Time is so gentle, these transformations feel natural, not jarring. They remind us that nothing stays the same and that this reality can be beautiful rather than frightening. One of the show's most tender portrayals of change is Simon Petrikov, the man who once was, now lost, inside the Ice King. Simon's transformation is tragic, a slow unraveling caused by the crown's curse. His story is one of identity eroded by magic, love replaced with obsession, memory crumbling like old paper. Yet even within that sorrow, we glimpse resilience. Marceline never forgets the man he was, and through her remembrance, we see that love and memory can soften the harshness of change. Simon's tale is a reminder that transformation is not always fair or gentle, but it is always real, and it always carries lessons about the fragility of what we hold dear. Even time itself is treated as a living presence in Adventure Time. We see figures like Prismo, existing outside linear reality, reminding us that time is not as simple as we often believe. The multiverse and its endless versions of ooh suggest that every choice, every shift, spawns new timelines, each flowing like rivers branching into the sea. Within this larger tapestry, our characters' changes feel both small and cosmic at once. A boy growing into a man is not so different from a universe remaking itself, both unfolding naturally within the flow of time. What makes this theme so comforting is the way the show balances impermanence with continuity. Though everything changes, connections endure. Finn may grow older. Marceline may outlive centuries of companions. Kingdoms may collapse. Yet bonds of friendship, love, and memory ripple across these changes. In the end, Adventure Time reassures us that though change is inevitable, it does not erase meaning. It simply reshapes it, carrying the essence of what mattered into new forms. When we reflect on this theme while lying in bed, it begins to feel like a lullaby. The idea that change is constant, that nothing is locked in place, can sound frightening at first. But in the gentle hands of Adventure Time, it becomes a soothing truth. Just as the night yields to morning and summer fades into autumn, our lives shift and flow. This does not mean we lose everything. It means we are part of a living rhythm that connects us to everything else. As we move deeper into this theme, we notice how Adventure Time places change not only in the background, but directly into the characters' personal arcs. One of the most striking examples is the way Finn evolves across the seasons. At first, he is almost defined by his role as a hero, the boy who slays monsters, rescues princesses, and shouts his battle cry with joy. But slowly those sharp edges soften. He begins to question what it means to fight, to wonder if every conflict requires a sword. His relationship with the Flame Princess shows us that passion, while bright and consuming, cannot always last. His heartbreak teaches him patience, and his growing awareness of his own mistakes teaches him humility. Through Finn, we are invited to see that growing up is not about holding on to the same definitions forever, but about letting them change as we change. Even Jake, whose relaxed attitude often makes him seem unchanged, reveals his own cycles of growth. Becoming a father shifts him in ways he never expected. No longer is he only a carefree adventurer. He becomes a guide, a teacher, a source of stability for his children. This new role doesn't erase the old Jake, but it adds to him, layering responsibility over playfulness, wisdom over silliness. His transformation is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle, natural. The kind of change that comes simply from living long enough to see yourself reflected in the next generation. We also see cycles playing out on larger scales. The history of O itself is cyclical, echoing with patterns of destruction and renewal. The Mushroom War brought devastation, but from its ashes rose the Candy Kingdom, the Fire Kingdom, the Ice Kingdom. all strange, fragile, new societies built on the bones of the old. This repeating pattern of ruin and rebirth whispers to us that even catastrophe does not end the story. Life pushes forward, reshaping itself again and again, finding new forms to inhabit. The reincarnation of heroes, especially Finn, adds another layer to this idea. We learn that he is not simply a boy, but one thread in a vast tapestry of souls stretching back through time. His past lives as Shoko or other unnamed warriors reveal that the spirit of the hero persists, taking new forms in each age. This suggests that identity is not a fixed stone, but a flowing river. We are both who we are now and who we have been before, and the story does not stop when this chapter ends. It is a deeply comforting vision of existence. That even as we change, something essential within us continues, carried forward into new lives and new adventures. Adventure Time also weaves the idea of change into its portrayal of villains and darker forces. The Lich, a being of pure destruction, seems eternal and unchanging, yet even he is transformed when reborn as Sweet Pea, an innocent child free of his former corruption. This startling shift reminds us that nothing is locked forever into its form, not even darkness itself. With time, even what seems irredeemable can become something new. The transformation of the Lich is both unsettling and deeply hopeful, suggesting that change holds power over everything, even the forces we fear most. The show often uses objects as symbols of change, too. Finn's swords, for instance, are more than tools. They are markers of his growth. Each time a sword breaks, is lost, or is replaced, it mirrors a shift in Finn's journey. The grass sword becomes the Finn sword, and later the fusion with the grass demon shows us that even in objects there are cycles of growth, decay, and renewal. These transitions remind us that possessions, like people, carry stories, and that letting go of one tool to take up another is part of moving forward. The flow of time in Adventure Time is not linear in the way we usually think of it. The presence of characters like Prismo or the Cosmic Owl remind us that time can bend, twist, and loop back on itself. Dreams show glimpses of the future. Alternate universes branch off from single decisions. The land of Oo exists within a multiverse where every choice creates new possibilities. And yet within all this vastness, characters still live their simple, personal stories. This contrast between the infinite scale of time and the intimate changes of daily life is what gives Adventure Time its unique balance of cosmic and human. What emerges from all of this is a gentle philosophy. The change is not something to resist, but to flow with. When we resist, we break. But when we move with the current, we find strength. Marceline's 1,000 years of life, Jake's transition into fatherhood, Finn's passage from boy to young man. These stories show us that accepting change allows us to grow, to heal, and to carry our past selves with kindness rather than regret. Lying here, reflecting on these themes, it feels as though the story is reminding us of our own cycles. The way childhood drifts into adulthood, the way friendships transform, the way even the most painful endings eventually open into something new. The philosophy of Adventure Time is gentle but steady. All things shift, but nothing is ever truly lost. Every ending is folded into a new beginning, and every moment becomes part of the larger flow of time. In another tale, whispered along the shadowed edges of quiet villages, people spoke of a faceless woman who wandered the countryside roads after dusk. They said she wore a long, pale dress, and though she walked with calm steps, no one dared to draw too close. For where her face should have been, there was only smoothness, as though her features had been gently erased. Travelers claim that if you tried to look directly at her, a wave of unease would rise inside you. A creeping feeling, as though you were not alone in your own skin. Some believe she sought something she had lost long ago, her voice, her identity, or perhaps even her memory. Others said she was a punishment, a spirit cursed dead to walk the world without recognition, forever unseen, forever unknown. Yet, even as fear curled around her legend, some whispered that she was lonely, not malevolent, that if you stopped and acknowledged her, she would follow you, hoping for companionship, until one day she vanished again into the mist. And then there are the dolls. Small, porcelain faces with painted eyes and faint smiles sitting quietly on forgotten shelves. The stories surrounding them are always soft, spoken with caution. A child might receive one as a gift, only to find it later moved ever so slightly from where it had been placed. Some said the dolls watched over children while they slept, their glassy stares guarding the fragile line between dreams and waking. Others whispered that the dolls were vessels, tiny anchors for wandering spirits, offering them a home, a place to rest when the night grew long. One story tells of a boy who left his doll in the attic, forgotten for years. When he finally returned, the doll sat in the same spot, but its face had cracked just slightly, and its expression seemed different, gentler, almost knowing. He swore that, as he grew older, whenever sorrow weighed heavily on his heart, the doll would be there, watching, silent but present, as though offering comfort in its own strange, unspoken way. Not all tales of dolls are so tender. In other corners of the world they are said to be tricksters, their spirits unsettled. Some would vanish entirely, only to reappear in odd places, on stair steps, in rocking chairs, or at the edge of a bed. Yet even then, their presence carried less of menace and more of mystery, as though they were reminders that the veil between the living and the forgotten is thinner than we imagine. Finally, there is the tale of the mirror that does not reflect. Many cultures speak of mirrors as thresholds, fragile glass surfaces that connect us not only to our reflection, but to something beyond. To gaze too long, they say, is to risk meeting another version of yourself, the shadow self, the reflection that does not follow your movements. Those who claim to have seen such a thing never forget the feeling. They describe their reflection lingering for a fraction of a second longer than it should, or smiling faintly when they had not moved their lips. Some mirrors are said to hold memory within them, keeping a trace of all who have looked into their surface. These mirrors grow heavy, not in weight, but in spirit, until they begin to hum with an unseen energy. If you stand before them late at night, with only a flicker of candlelight at your side, you may hear faint whispers carried in the stillness, echoes of those who came before you. Not cruel voices, but voices longing to be remembered, like shadows reaching from behind the glass. And so all these stories of the faceless woman, the porcelain dolls, the haunted mirrors, tie together into the same thread. A yearning for recognition, for memory, for a presence that lingers even when silence swallows the world. Perhaps that is why these legends hold such power over us. They are not merely about fear, but about belonging. The faceless woman longs for acknowledgement. The dolls search for a resting place. The mirrors reflect not just our image, but our desire to know that we are seen, that we exist, that we are not forgotten. Adventure Time has always been a series that dances on a thin line between complete nonsense and startling wisdom. It is a show where a talking lemon can scream about justice, where a candy king plots schemes with the seriousness of an ancient monarch, and where a dog stretches his limbs across entire landscapes, as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. On the surface, these scenes seem absurd, even ridiculous, but within the layers of humor and surrealism lies something deeply resonant. The strange thing about absurdity is that it often disarms us. It lowers our defenses, catches us off guard, and in that moment of laughter or confusion, a small truth can slip past unnoticed. Adventure Time is a master of this. One minute you are watching Finn and Jake fight a giant, talking toaster, and the next you are reflecting on the fragile nature of time, friendship, and mortality. It is this constant weaving of the bizarre with the profound that makes the series feel unlike anything else. Take, for example, the way Ice King is portrayed. At first glance, he is silly, bumbling, and even irritating. His obsession with princesses and his awkward behavior are played for laughs. Yet slowly, across episodes, we discover the tragedy behind his madness. The crown that gives him his powers is also what robs him of his sanity, leaving him trapped in a cycle of loneliness and confusion. The ridiculous exterior hides a heartbreaking story of a man who only wanted to protect, who only wanted love, but instead was consumed by forces beyond his control. Here, absurdity becomes the gateway to empathy. What began as comic relief transforms into a mirror for human vulnerability. In this way, the absurd often acts as a disguise for truth. It's as if the show is telling us, yes, life is strange and unpredictable. And yes, sometimes it doesn't make sense. But within that strangeness is where we often find the deepest meaning. This is a philosophy echoed across countless works of art, but Adventure Time delivers it with a sugar-coated, neon-colored smile. The Land of Ooh is a playground where talking rainbows, candy people, and cosmic owls can exist. But it is also a place where the deepest questions of existence are whispered through the cracks of its silliness. One of the most striking examples comes from the episodes that deal with death and the afterlife. Few children's shows are willing to venture into such territory, and fewer still manage to balance it with humor. Yet Adventure Time does not shy away from it. When Finn encounters the cosmic entities who govern life and death, the conversations are often as funny as they are profound. A talking banana might interrupt, or a silly pun might slip in at the exact moment when the tone feels heavy, and yet the questions linger. What does it mean to die? What does it mean to live a good life? These are not diminished by the absurd interruptions. Instead, they are made more accessible. Absurdity, then, becomes not a distraction from truth, but a companion to it. It reminds us that the universe does not always speak in solemn tones. Sometimes wisdom arrives in the form of a joke, a strange image, or a nonsensical adventure. It is through this playfulness that the lessons settle deeper, because they do not feel forced. They arrive naturally, as if hidden beneath layers of candy and laughter. The balance between absurdity and truth also reflects the way we as humans experience life. Our daily lives are filled with contradictions. One moment we are laughing at something trivial, and the next we are struck by a thought so heavy it takes our breath away. Adventure Time captures this rhythm of existence, the sudden shifts, the way absurdity and meaning coexist in the same breath. It tells us that silliness is not the opposite of wisdom. In fact, it may be one of its purest expressions. Consider the character of Lemongrab. His shrill voice, his dramatic exclamations, and his bizarre way of ruling make him a figure of comedy. And yet when we look closer, he represents isolation, the struggle of identity, and the desperation to be accepted. His absurdity is uncomfortable, even annoying at times. But beneath it lies the reflection of something deeply human. Adventure Time constantly asks us to see beyond the surface, to notice that Even the most ridiculous characters are often carrying truths that echo our own struggles. The show's creators seem to understand that children and adults alike process meaning differently when it is wrapped in absurdity. A child may laugh at Jake turning into a giant foot, while an adult may find in that same scene a metaphor for the fluidity of identity, the strangeness of the body, or the ability to adapt to the unexpected. The absurdity allows each viewer to take what they need, to approach the truth at their own pace. This is what gives the series such a lasting impact. Years after watching, viewers remember not only the laughter, but also the moments when something quietly profound slipped through. The humor softened the blow, but the truth remained, waiting to be recognized when the time was right. What makes this blend so enchanting is that Adventure Time never tells us what to think. Instead, it offers a kaleidoscope of moments, some utterly bizarre, some piercingly emotional, and lets us wander through them like travelers in Ooh. A banana guard tripping over his own spear can sit comfortably beside Princess Bubblegum, discussing the responsibilities of leadership. A scene of Jake singing nonsense songs can transition into Finn questioning his own purpose in the universe. By refusing to separate the silly from the profound, the series suggests that perhaps they were never meant to be separated at all. Take the relationship between humor and pain. Often, the most absurd characters are the ones carrying the deepest burdens. Ice King's songs, written in a falsetto voice and paired with goofy lyrics, mask the pain of his fractured memory. Tree Trunks, with her childlike voice and love of apple pies, finds herself swept into adventures that raise existential questions about aging and purpose. Even BMO, a cheerful little console with a squeaky voice, sometimes reveals lonely musings about what it means to be alive, or whether being real is tied to having a body. The humor disarms us, but once we peel back the laughter, we're faced with questions that linger long after the episode ends. This mirrors our own lives in a strange way. Think of how often people laugh at themselves during moments of difficulty, or how jokes are shared at funerals and family gatherings as a way to soften the weight of grief. We too use absurdity as a shield, as a bridge, and sometimes as a way to say things that would be too heavy if spoken plainly. Adventure Time simply magnifies this universal truth into a fantastical, candy-colored world. The very landscape of Ooh contributes to this balance. The world is visually absurd, a post-apocalyptic wasteland overgrown with cheerful candy kingdoms, rainbow bridges, and talking creatures of every shape and size. Yet lurking beneath the vibrant surface is the history of destruction and survival. The Mushroom War, hinted at throughout the series, is both ridiculous in its cartoon imagery and devastating in its implications. The contrast between the playful present and the tragic past makes Ooh feel alive, as though joy and sorrow are both stitched into its very soil. One of the best examples of this balance comes in the episode Poi, where Finn escapes into a pillow world after a fight with Flame Princess. On the surface, the idea of a land entirely made of pillows is absurd, even laughable. But the story that unfolds is one of the most profound explorations of life, love, and mortality in the entire series. Finn grows old in this world, starts a family, faces regrets, and eventually dies of old age, only to awaken back in the real world where only moments have passed. The silliness of pillow people and blanket kingdoms sets the stage for one of the most striking meditations on the fleeting nature of life. The absurd did not dilute the meaning, it carried it. In a similar way, the cosmic owl embodies this strange duality. He is a dream figure who often delivers cryptic messages, appearing in surreal and sometimes ridiculous ways. But when his presence is truly understood, it becomes clear that he is tied to destiny itself. What begins as a bizarre bird showing up in Finn's dreams gradually reveals itself to be a symbol of fate, inevitability, and the threads of time that bind all things together. Again, the silly and the profound coexist, and one cannot be separated from the other. This is why Adventure Time resonates across generations. Children may giggle at the bright colors and oddball characters, while adults find themselves confronted with truths about loneliness, change, and love hidden in those very oddities. The absurd is not just a style of humor. It is the very medium through which the truth arrives. It makes the serious approachable, the heavy bearable, and the profound unforgettable. What's fascinating is how the show invites us to accept this paradox as natural. It does not ask us to choose between laughing and reflecting. It tells us that both can happen at the same time, that laughter itself might be the doorway to wisdom. And perhaps this is why so many fans describe Adventure Time as comforting. Because in a world where real life is often just as absurd and just as confusing, the show reassures us that within the nonsense there can be clarity, and within the laughter there can be truth. The balance is also maintained through the rhythm of the storytelling itself. Many episodes start with playful banter, wild antics, or strange settings that feel almost meaningless at first glance. But as the minutes unfold, the absurdities settle into a kind of pattern, and slowly, deeper themes emerge. It is almost like watching ripples spread across water after a stone has been dropped. What begins as a small, silly splash evolves into waves that touch everything around them. This pacing lulls the viewer into comfort, making the lessons feel less like lectures and more like discoveries stumbled upon in a dream. Take, for instance, the episode Thank You. On the surface, it is a simple tale of a snow golem befriending a lost firewolf pup. The imagery is gentle, almost wordless, and filled with playful absurdity. A creature made of snow cradling a pup of fire, two beings who by nature should not coexist. The comedy of their mismatched forms creates warmth and lightness. Yet beneath that surface lies one of the most profound reflections in the entire series, the story of selflessness, acceptance, and the idea that love sometimes means letting go. The absurd provides the wrapping, but inside is a lesson as deep as any classic fable. This interplay between humor and gravity is often mirrored in Finn and Jake's relationship. Their brotherhood is full of pranks, laziness, and odd little jokes that feel almost nonsensical. Jake stretching into a giant foot, or Finn shouting out silly catchphrases are moments of pure absurd joy. Yet it is precisely because of this levity that their deeper conversations hit so strongly. When Finn confesses his fears of being alone, or when Jake reflects on the passing of time, the silliness of their bond makes the weight of those reflections easier to bear. Adventure Time shows us that love, family, and friendship are not just measured in grand declarations, but in the laughter we share along the way. Even the villains of Ooh reflect this strange balance. The Lich, a being of pure evil, should in theory be terrifying beyond measure, and often he is. His voice, his presence, his goals of annihilation all feel larger than life. Yet, in a series where candy people and living rainbows exist, his menace takes on a strangely surreal quality. He is surrounded by absurdity, and that contrast only heightens his power. At the same time, the show occasionally places the Lich in situations that almost parody his seriousness, like when his essence becomes trapped inside a harmless snail, or when he is reborn as Sweet Pea, a child of innocence. It is both dark and absurd, horrifying and endearing. The show seems to whisper that even in the face of cosmic evil, the balance between fear and laughter must be maintained. This philosophy is not limited to individual characters or stories. It permeates the very worldview of Adventure Time. The series treats the universe as both mysterious and silly, profound and nonsensical. Time can fold in on itself, dreams can alter destinies, and ancient wars can be fought with armies of bubblegum creatures. The rules of the world are elastic, bending in whatever direction the story needs, but always carrying a sense of meaning within the nonsense. In many ways, it mirrors the unpredictability of real life. Our own world is filled with strange, inexplicable events, moments that feel random, humorous, or even absurd. But often, when looked at closely, they reveal something deeper about who we are. It's also worth noting how the show uses language to embody this balance. Characters often speak in phrases that sound like silly slang or made-up nonsense. Finn shouts, "Mathematical," or "algebraic," in moments of excitement, phrases that are humorous because of their randomness. Yet those very words symbolize something deeper. The way young people invent language to capture feelings too big for ordinary words. The silliness becomes a vessel for genuine expression, showing us that even nonsense can hold truth if spoken from the heart. Episodes such as I Remember You capture this balance in its most potent form. Ice King's ridiculous songs, his offbeat behavior, and Marceline's sarcastic replies create moments that might seem comedic. But as the truth of their history unfolds, his descent into madness, her memories of him as Simon, the laughter fades into silence. The absurd and the tragic fuse together, creating a resonance that lingers long after the episode ends. Without the absurdity, the tragedy might have felt overwhelming. Without the tragedy, the absurdity might have felt hollow. Together, they form something unforgettable. In this way, Adventure Time teaches a quiet, profound lesson. Life itself is absurd, and yet it is precisely within that absurdity that meaning is born. We do not have to separate silliness from seriousness, laughter from sorrow, or dreams from truth. They live side by side, woven to the same tapestry. Ooh is simply a reflection of our own lives, painted in brighter colors and stranger shapes, but no less true. And so, when we laugh at Finn's goofy mistakes or marvel at the ridiculousness of a kingdom made entirely of candy, we are not just laughing at nonsense. We are engaging in a deeper philosophy, one that tells us joy and wisdom are not opposites, but companions. The absurd invites us to lower our guard, to soften our hearts, and in that softness, the profound truths of existence slip in quietly, like a lullaby sung just before sleep. If we step back and look at the entire arc of the series, the balance between absurdity and profundity becomes clearer still. The story begins with light-hearted adventures, Finn and Jake slaying monsters, rescuing princesses, and wandering into lands filled with strange, comical inhabitants. At first glance, these episodes might seem like little more than playful nonsense, a cartoon meant to entertain. Yet as the seasons progress, the layers peel back to reveal deeper truths. Each silly adventure lays the groundwork for heavier questions, as though the show is gently preparing its viewers to handle the weight of more difficult themes. The progression is almost like growing up. Childhood is often filled with silliness, with games and laughter that seem unshakable. But as time passes, deeper questions creep in about identity, about mortality, about purpose. Adventure Time mirrors this transition, guiding both its characters and its viewers from light-hearted absurdity into the quiet contemplation of adulthood. The balance is not just a narrative device. It is a reflection of the human experience itself. This may be why so many fans describe Adventure Time as comforting, even when it touches on difficult subjects. The absurdity offers safety, a reminder that it's okay to laugh, that the world, even at its most confusing, can still be playful. The profundity, meanwhile, provides grounding, reminding us that within the laughter lies wisdom, and within the nonsense lies truth. Together, they form a rhythm that feels almost like breathing. Inhale with laughter, exhale with reflection. The characters themselves embody this duality. Take Jake the dog. On the surface, he is a carefree trickster, bending his body into outlandish shapes and filling the air with jokes. Yet he often becomes the voice of wisdom, speaking profound truths in the simplest ways. His philosophy of just roll with it may sound silly, but within it lies a deep acceptance of life's unpredictability. The same can be said for BMO, who may spend an episode pretending to be a detective or playing games, only to suddenly speak with startling clarity about identity, loneliness, or the nature of reality. The show delights in surprising us with wisdom from the most unexpected, absurd places. This pattern reflects an important truth about philosophy itself. Throughout history, some of the most profound thinkers have used humor, paradox, or absurd imagery to express their ideas. From Zen koans that defy logic to the playful paradoxes of Socratic dialogue, philosophy has long embraced the absurd as a pathway to deeper understanding. Adventure Time fits within this tradition, hiding philosophical insights inside candy wrappers, jokes, and nonsense songs. It is philosophy by way of lullaby, delivered in a language that feels both light and eternal. Consider also how the series handles endings. In many shows, finales are grand and conclusive, aiming to tie every thread together neatly. Adventure Time, however, leans into the balance once more. The final episode, Come Along With Me, is filled with absurdity, giant monsters, musical numbers, and chaotic battles. Yet at its heart, it is profoundly reflective. Characters grapple with change, with loss, with the acceptance that their time has passed and a new generation will rise. The ending is both silly and deeply moving, capturing the essence of everything that came before. It tells us that life is never purely one thing or the other. It is laughter and sorrow, chaos and meaning, absurdity and truth, all at once. And so, when we think about what Adventure Time teaches us through this balance, the lesson is gentle but unmistakable. It tells us that we do not need to resolve the tension between silliness and seriousness, because they were never truly in conflict. They are partners, dancing together in a rhythm as old as storytelling itself. The absurd makes us laugh, opening our hearts, while the profound slips quietly in to remind us of what matters. Together they create something timeless, a philosophy wrapped in whimsy that lingers like a dream long after the story ends. As we let this idea settle, it becomes easier to see our own lives reflected in the land of Ooh. How many times have we found ourselves laughing in the middle of sorrow, or discovering wisdom in the midst of nonsense? How often have we told jokes at the hardest times, or found clarity in the strangest moments? Adventure Time reflects this truth with honesty and kindness, reminding us that meaning does not always come dressed in solemnity. Sometimes the deepest truths are found in the silliest places. And so, with this balance in mind, the world of Ooh invites us to rest easy. It tells us that we can laugh at the absurdities of life without losing sight of its profundity. And we can embrace the profound truths without forgetting to laugh. This balance, delicate and enduring, is the heart of Adventure Time's philosophy. And as we drift further into our reflection, we can carry this reminder with us, that the world is strange, The world is silly, and the world is deeply meaningful, all at once. As we draw closer to the heart of our reflection, it feels natural to pause and consider the lingering essence of adventure time, the quiet lessons it leaves behind once the laughter fades and the final story is told. These lessons do not announce themselves loudly. They do not arrive in grand speeches or heavy-handed morals. Instead, they drift softly, like gentle whispers carried on the wind, waiting for us to notice them when our hearts are still enough to listen. One of the first lessons is that life's meaning is not hidden in some faraway place, waiting to be uncovered by epic quests. Instead, it emerges in the ordinary moments, the small gestures of kindness, the mistakes we learn from, and the bonds we form along the way. Finn may have fought countless monsters, faced cosmic beings, and traveled across dimensions, but the moments that resonate most deeply are often the simplest ones. The quiet talk with Jake at the end of a long day, the act of forgiving a friend, or the decision to carry on even when things feel uncertain. These moments remind us that being alive is not about chasing after perfection, but about experiencing life fully in all its messy beauty. Adventure Time also teaches us about the acceptance of impermanence. Characters grow older, relationships change, and kingdoms rise and fall. Nothing stays frozen in time, and that is not presented as a tragedy, but as a natural rhythm of existence. In Ooh, even endings are doorways to something new. When Princess Bubblegum steps down from power, when Finn grows into young adulthood, or when Jake eventually passes on, the world continues to turn, carrying with it both memory and renewal. The lesson is gentle but clear. We cannot hold on to everything, and that is what makes each moment precious. This acceptance of change is paired with another quiet truth, the idea that love and connection endure, even when circumstances shift. Marceline and Bubblegum's story illustrates this beautifully. Their bond is not perfect, not free from conflict, but it weathers time, distance, and misunderstanding until it grows into something resilient. Simon and Marceline, too, remind us that love is not erased by hardship, even if it takes on new forms. These lessons are not delivered with fanfare. They unfold slowly, showing us that love is less about grand gestures and more about choosing to stay connected again and again through all of life's turns. And then there is the lesson of resilience. Ooh is a land shaped by catastrophe, by the remnants of a war that scarred the earth beyond recognition. Yet from those ashes, candy kingdoms grew, music filled the forests, and friendships blossomed. Even in the wake of destruction, life found a way to continue. The characters of Adventure Time live with this resilience woven into their beings. They stumble, they fall, and they face loss. But they always rise again, ready to laugh, to explore, and to love once more. For us, the lesson is clear. We cannot always prevent hardship, but we can always choose how to move forward. The show also whispers to us about the importance of balance. Not every question has to be answered, not every mystery solved. Sometimes the beauty lies in the uncertainty. We see this in Finn's encounters with cosmic beings like Prismo or the cosmic owl, where answers are partial and mysteries remain. Rather than leaving us frustrated, these encounters remind us that not all of life's questions can be neatly tied up. Some truths are meant to be lived with, not solved. The quiet lesson here is that it is okay not to know everything. The unknown can be part of the wonder. When we put these pieces together, what emerges is not a rigid philosophy, but a tapestry of gentle reminders. Live fully, accept change, cherish love, rise with resilience, and rest in the mystery. Adventure Time does not shout these lessons from the rooftops. It plants them softly in our hearts, allowing them to grow in their own time. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all, that wisdom does not always arrive in loud, dramatic ways. Sometimes it comes disguised in candy-colored whirls, in jokes and songs, in stories that seem silly until they settle into memory. And as we drift into sleep, we may find those lessons surfacing, reminding us that the world is strange, fleeting, and beautiful, and that our task is not to master it, but to live in it with kindness, courage, and curiosity. One of the most powerful things about Adventure Time is how much of its wisdom is not loudly declared but gently left behind, like a trail of breadcrumbs. The series never treats its viewers like they need to be preached to. Instead, it trusts them to notice the details, to connect the dots, and to carry the lessons into their own lives. That quietness is what gives those lessons staying power. It is what makes fans return to certain episodes years later and suddenly realize they missed something before, or that a line they once laughed at now makes them pause with recognition. Think about the way the show handles forgiveness. There are no grand speeches about why forgiving someone is noble or morally correct. Instead, we see characters like Marceline slowly making peace with her father, Hunson Abadir. Their relationship is strained, filled with resentment and betrayal, but across time, she learns to see him for who he is, flaws and all. The show doesn't hand us a clean resolution with everything tied up in a bow. It shows us the reality, and that forgiveness is not always about excusing someone, but about releasing the weight they hold over you. That is a lesson more impactful because it is never forced. Another quiet but powerful theme is acceptance of impermanence. Characters come and go, stories shift, and not everything has a dramatic ending. Tree Trunks drifts into her strange little romances and side adventures. Turtle Princess disappears into the background after a few heartfelt moments. Even the recurring motif of candy citizens being reborn or replaced highlights the fact that nothing stays exactly the same. The show normalizes change without making it frightening. In fact, it portrays it as a natural rhythm of life. And isn't that exactly how real life works? People move away, friendships evolve, priorities shift, and yet the world keeps moving forward. Adventure Time shows us that letting go is not failure. It is simply part of the flow. Then there are the lessons about vulnerability. Finn, especially, is constantly confronted with the idea that being strong does not mean being unshakable. His heartbreaks with Flame Princess, and later with Huntress Wizard, don't end with him putting up a wall or pretending nothing hurt. Instead, he allows himself to feel those emotions, to cry, to admit disappointment. The series does something radical in showing a young hero who is allowed to break down and still remain heroic. The quiet lesson is a gift to anyone who grew up thinking strength only meant suppressing feelings. Even secondary characters are given moments that whisper wisdom. The Ice King, who often appears as comic relief, gradually reveals the deep tragedy of Simon Petrikov. His story teaches us about the fragility of identity, about how easily love and memory can slip away when consumed by forces outside our control. There is no sermon attached, just a slow unfolding that leaves viewers with a sense of empathy they didn't expect. Many fans walked away with a deeper understanding of mental health struggles because the show never turned Simon into a caricature. It showed his humanity even when buried beneath madness. Perhaps the quietest lesson of all is about the beauty of small moments. Adventure Time is filled with grand battles and cosmic adventures, but often the most impactful episodes are the simplest ones. Finn and Jake hanging out on a rainy day, Marceline playing a song on her bass, BMO exploring their own identity in small, childlike ways. These are the moments that echo real life, where meaning isn't always found in extraordinary events, but in the calm spaces in between. The show seems to be saying that if you only look for meaning in big dramatic events, you will miss the subtle truths that live in ordinary moments. Adventure Time teaches us to treasure the times when nothing much is happening, because those are often the times that shape who we are. If you look closely, each main character in Adventure Time carries their own set of quiet lessons, and together they form a mosaic of human experience. Take Jake, for example. At first glance, Jake is the carefree, lazy, joke-cracking companion. But behind that relaxed exterior is a character who understands balance better than anyone else in O. He teaches us, without ever really saying it, that life doesn't have to be constant struggle. That sometimes the most important thing you can do is rest, or laugh, or take a step back instead of forcing yourself to fight every battle head-on. This is not to say Jake is without depth. When we learn about his origins, about the nature of his powers and his eventual fate, it becomes clear that Jake has always been more than comic relief. He represents a kind of wisdom that doesn't need to sound profound to be profound. He lives in the moment fully, and that's something many of us forget to do. His quiet lesson is that not every answer comes from striving. Sometimes joy is found in letting go. BMO offers another layer of subtle wisdom. At first, BMO might seem like a quirky little game console with an adorable personality. But as the show unfolds, BMO's character becomes a study in self-identity and innocence. BMO doesn't worry about fitting into labels. They don't stress over whether they're a machine, a child, or an adult. They just exist, play, and love without needing external validation. The lesson BMO leaves behind is that identity doesn't always have to be rigid or explained. Sometimes you are simply yourself, and that is enough. Their childlike wonder also reminds us that play is not a distraction from life, but part of living itself. Princess Bubblegum, on the other hand, embodies the complexities of power and responsibility. She is intelligent, authoritative, and often cold in her logic. Yet her quiet lessons come from the moments where her humanity slips through, where we see her vulnerability in relationships with Finn, Marceline, or her own people. She teaches us that leadership is not perfection. It's compromise, mistakes, and the willingness to adapt. And maybe the most subtle lesson she offers is that even when you're capable, you don't have to carry everything alone. Her evolution throughout the series shows us the importance of balancing intellect with compassion, control with trust. Then there's the Ice King, or rather, Simon Petrikov. His story may be one of the most tragic yet deeply meaningful arcs in the show. At first, he is a bizarre villain, a figure played for laughs with his random schemes and delusions. But the quiet lesson hidden beneath his madness is that people are often more than the surface we see. Simon's decline due to the crown is a heartbreaking metaphor for how external forces, mental illness, trauma, or addiction, can distort someone's identity, and still, through the wreckage, his love for Marceline shines through. His story teaches us empathy, to look past someone's outward behavior and remember there might be a person inside struggling to be seen. Even characters like Lumpy Space Princess, who seems to be comic relief taken to the extreme, offer a strange sort of wisdom. Her brash, self-absorbed personality may feel ridiculous, but it also reflects the struggles of identity and belonging. Beneath her dramatics, there are glimpses of loneliness and a desire for connection. She shows us that even the most absurd-seeming people often carry hidden insecurities. The lesson, tucked between laughs, is to approach others with patience, because sometimes Their over-the-top behavior is a mask for what they're truly feeling. Adventure Time doesn't just present these lessons once and move on. It layers them, revisits them, and lets them evolve as the characters grow. Finn, especially, serves as the anchor for this process. His journey from a wide-eyed adventurer to a thoughtful, self-aware young man mirrors the transition from childhood to adulthood. What's remarkable is how quietly this transformation is told. There are no grand declarations of "I've grown up." Instead, we notice it in the way he reacts differently to challenges, the way he handles relationships, the way he lets go when once he would have clung too tightly. This gradual growth feels deeply real because it mirrors the way we change in our own lives. Rarely do we realize in the moment that we've grown wiser or more mature. It usually only becomes clear in hindsight. Adventure Time captures that truth with honesty and grace. The quiet lesson left behind here is that growth is not a single event, but a process, often invisible until we look back. And what about mortality? The show does not shy away from the reality that all things end. Finn and Jake's eventual passing, Simon's sacrifice, even the constant regeneration of the Candy Kingdom's citizens. Each is a reminder of life's impermanence. But instead of framing it as a source of despair, Adventure Time presents it as natural, even beautiful. The quiet message is that endings are not failures, but part of the cycle. To live fully is to accept that nothing lasts forever, and that this truth makes our moments together all the more precious. Adventure Time's quietest and perhaps most powerful lesson is this: the world is absurd, beautiful, tragic, and funny all at once, and our role is not to untangle it into a neat explanation, but to live inside of it with open eyes. That lesson doesn't need to be shouted because, once you notice it, it stays with you forever. There's something remarkable about how Adventure Time scatters its wisdom across even the smallest corners of its world. Peppermint Butler, for instance, is a side character who, on the surface, seems like a harmless servant in the Candy Kingdom. Yet behind his polite demeanor lies a deep knowledge of dark magic, secrets, and ancient forces. His lesson isn't obvious at first, but it lingers once you think about it. Even the most unassuming people may carry worlds of experience and mysteries we can't see. He reminds us to resist underestimating others and to remember that everyone has hidden layers. Even Tree Trunks, the elderly elephant who loves her apple pies, teaches something quietly profound. She represents simplicity, a character who never chases grand adventures, yet finds fulfillment in small joys. Her presence is a reminder that not everyone is destined for heroic quests. Some lives are heroic in their own way because they are lived with contentment, love, and an appreciation for the ordinary. Her lesson is that meaning doesn't always come from slaying monsters or saving kingdoms. Sometimes it's found in baking pies, nurturing friendships, and living gently. Characters like Marceline the Vampire Queen carry heavier, more emotional lessons. Her centuries-long existence weaves together themes of memory, grief, and identity. What Marceline leaves behind is a story about resilience, that we can survive heartbreak, abandonment, and loneliness without losing our capacity to love. Her music, her vulnerability, and her evolving relationship with Princess Bubblegum show us that identity is fluid and healing is possible, even after centuries of pain. Marceline's quiet lesson is that vulnerability is not weakness, but the key to truly connecting with others. What ties all these lessons together is the way Adventure Time never insists on them. It never interrupts the story to explain the moral of the episode. Instead, the lessons come naturally, as if they were seeds planted in the soil of ooze Oo's strange landscape. We stumble across them while laughing at Lumpy Space Princess's outbursts, or while watching Finn and Jake lounge around lazily, or in the middle of a bizarre cosmic revelation about the structure of the universe. And that's exactly why they last, because they arrive softly when we least expect them and stay with us long after the episode ends. As viewers, these lessons quietly shape the way we think about our own lives. Maybe we begin to see our friends differently, realizing they're as layered as characters like Bubblegum or Ice King. Maybe we learn to appreciate the absurdity in our own days, laughing at how messy life can be. Or perhaps we simply remember Jake's laid-back philosophy on a stressful afternoon and allow ourselves to breathe instead of pushing harder. The show doesn't just tell us stories. It equips us with ways of seeing the world that make it gentler, stranger, and more meaningful. And perhaps the greatest quiet lesson Adventure Time leaves behind is this: everything matters, even when it seems silly. Every friendship, every heartbreak, every moment of laughter and sorrow adds up to the story of who we are. Just like the land of Ooh, our lives are full of contradictions, joy and pain, absurdity and wisdom, chaos and peace. But those contradictions don't cancel each other out. They make life richer. They make the journey worth taking. When the final episode aired, many fans described feeling both heartbroken and satisfied. That feeling itself was a lesson. Endings hurt because we care. And if we care, it means the story mattered. Adventure Time showed us that stories don't really end. They echo in us, shaping the way we understand love, change, mortality, and joy. We carry those echoes, just as Finn and Jake carried each other through every season, and just as Simon carried Marceline in his heart, even when he could no longer remember himself. So as we drift into rest tonight, let's hold on to those quiet lessons. Let's remember that it's okay to laugh at nonsense, to cry at goodbyes, to rest when the world feels heavy, and to love in all its messy, shifting forms. Adventure Time didn't shout these truths at us. It whispered them, wrapped in candy colors, magic swords, and surreal songs. The whisper still lingers if we take the time to listen. And maybe that's the final gift of the land of Ooh. Not that it gave us all the answers, but that it reminded us the answers are often small, strange, and waiting in the everyday moments of our own lives. So as you close your eyes tonight, think of Finn's laughter, Jake's wisdom, BMO's innocence, Marceline's songs, and all the strange, wonderful souls that made Ooh come alive. Their stories remind us that even in the silliest corners of existence, meaning waits quietly, ready to be noticed. Good night.